Hello, everybody, and welcome to the social sciences segment of our Petroc Open Day today. I'd like to say on the call here today, we have myself, John, and I'm a history and politics teacher here, but we also have Eve, who teaches psychology, and teaches law, and Sylvia, who teaches business with us. I'd also like to point out we've got a number of our colleagues who are in the chat and ready to answer your questions as they come in. So there's plenty of things to work about there. So just before we get straight into questions, we don't have a presentation as such. We want to give an opportunity to allow you guys to ask us questions, to find out the kinds of things that you want about the study for yourselves or for your children. But I'll just say a little bit about the term social science. I mean, it's one of those ones that kind of gets bandied around, and there's lots of humor of people saying that social science isn't the same as hard science, or what's it for and what's its purpose. But I think the main thing to think about is that social science is for those people that want to influence the world, that they want to actually think about how it works and how to make it work better. Now, that could be across a whole range of things. How do you make the money flow better? How do you make the legal systems work better? How do you be a good prime minister? All of those aspects are important parts of it. And it's by bolting together those subject choices that you as learners or as the parents of learners will hopefully be able to build young people into fully functioning, fantastic adults who'll be able to make a better difference to the world. Brilliant. Well, without too much ado, and no more further sort of ranting from me, I would like to hand us over to some Q&A. So if we could start to fire up the questions, please, that would be excellent. Cool. Well, I'm guessing this one's for me. So what history do you study? So the way that our specification works is that you have two prime areas of which 80% of your course works. One of them has to be on an element of British history. One of them has to be on an element of non-British. One of them has to be a depth study. One of them has to be a breadth study. So we look at, for our depth study in British history, we do the Wars of the Roses, which is just great history. It's just a great story as well as great history, which looks at that period immediately prior to the Tudors, almost like the origin story. If it was a Marvel film, it'd be the origin story of English history. And on the other side, we look at German history, but we go far beyond just the normal thing of looking at Hitler. It's about the story of Germany as a whole. And we also do Russian history for coursework. Thank you. Next question, please. I think this one's one for you, Eve.
Okay, so what questions do we choose from the second year? Options. So we look at forensics, relationships, and schizophrenia. And we have a group of teachers within psychology, and we stick to specific modules. So we're very well course in teaching those options, and they're very interesting. And probably one of the most popular is forensics within those, and then schizophrenia.
Cool. Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, guys. This is for me. Yes, universities accept law A-level on law degrees, and it doesn't matter what university you're hoping to go to. I've got one chap this year who's being interviewed for a law degree at Oxford, and I've also had another student who's gone to Cambridge to study law. So there is no preclusion whatsoever. Many of the students that I have, they've gone on to become lawyers, whether that's a solicitor, barrister, or whether they're doing their paralegals or legal execs. So it's a great subject if you're interested in going on to university, because it's important that you see what the subject is like before you actually take it at university. You might hate it. And so it's really important that you get a feel for it, and you also get introduced to some of the vocabulary and some of the skills that you will need when you study law. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Francis. What modules are studied in sociology? Mick, I believe that Steph is, I think she may have already answered this, but just so you go, Steph's in the chats, but she's saying we've got family and education in year one with research methods and theory. And in the second year, looking at theory and methods and cover crime and media. So that would be that one there. Thank you for the question. Next one. What differences similarities between sociology and psychology? Steph is talking about that in the comments, but Eve, I don't know if you have anything which you could say on that or add to that.
Well, one of the biggest crossovers is the research methods. So if you're studying both of those, you do become very, very strong, which is a fantastic skill because you learn how to evaluate and unpick the methods by which all these ideas around human behaviour and behaviour in society, they are designed specifically to get the best results. I mean, as I don't teach sociology, I can't fully expand on that, but I know that the research method is one of the big crossovers.
Cool. Thank you. I mean, what modules do we study in the politics course? I like your picture. That's a very, very good picture there, Jim. First, so it's got 3 elements. So the politics course comes with less optionality than some of the other courses. The first course is quite simply the government and politics of the UK. They kind of make this distinction between government, meaning the kind of constitutional structures of how the UK works. So what is Parliament? What is the government? And the politics is the stuff like, this is what the Labour Party does, elections, the nature of democracy. Paper 2 looks at the United States, but it's a comparative focus. So whilst you will kind of replicate some of what you've done with the paper 1, so you look at the US Constitution, presidency and Congress, you will also have a comparative element, teaching this discipline of trying to take political ideas that could be applied to any system. And then by comparing them between the UK and the US, you kind of get these general concepts such as executive and legislative and so on. Paper 3 looks at political philosophy, and you look at 4 specific philosophies: liberalism, socialism, and conservatism. And on top of that as well, we also explore the concept of nationalism. I mean, it's been great stuff at the minute with the US presidential election. Plenty of stuff to talk about with our second year learners. So thank you, Jennifer. All good. Marianne, so what fieldwork is there in geography? I think I've seen Mary Ellen's in the comments, but 4 days of fieldwork is part of the course. A day to Bristol, a day to Dawlish Warren, and overseas trips have run to Iceland in the past and hope to in the future. Obviously, there are some challenges in relation to that at this moment in time, but I'm sure that they will eventually alleviate and be able to take exciting trips again. Cool. Thank you. Eve, one for you, I believe.
With regard to autism, there used to be autism in one of the old specs, but in the later specs, we don't specifically look at autism, no.
Oh, no. Cool. Okay, well, some tips on which A-level subjects go well together. Can mean one of the natures of social science is it's a discursive discipline, so there can be many, many opinions on this subject, and that's part of what to do. But one of the things that we like to think about is thinking of the subjects more in terms of the skill than the name. For example, psychology and sociology can make an excellent combination, but a number of people see the word ology in the end of it and therefore assume that is the combination that must happen. So it's more thinking about what you do in them. So for many of the social sciences subjects, they are fundamentally kind of disciplined and predicated on the idea of longer form essay questions, though there are some shorter ones in there, which means that the skills that you're really getting at is your ability to look at information, process it, analyze and evaluate, which are the 2 words we say most of all, I think, over the course of 2 years, and put it together into essay answers. So really bolt them together in terms of how your interests lie. So for example, if you do history, you may like history because you love the stories. Then actually possibly that could work well with something like English, because you've kind of got those elements again of you're looking at it from a narrative angle. Otherwise, you may be one of these historical people that would argue that the whole world is only a history of numbers, so therefore economics could be good. Or you could be fascinated in the personalities and influence of people from history and the effect that they've had on the world, so psychology could work. So it's to kind of think about it in that kind of way. I mean, that would be my point of view. I mean, what do you reckon, Francis? What do you reckon would go well with law?
Oh, gosh, I think the thing about any of the subjects that we've got in social sciences is they can be interchangeable with any. So law fits together with so many. You might want to be in a business sense, so it would go really well with business and perhaps economics. But by the same token, you know, you've talked about the subjects that you've got on politics, and indeed there's a crossover with law as well. It's just a different angle of what you're looking at, and in the same way that it works well with psychology and sociology. I've seen there in the questions that Steph has said something about the crossover on sociology and psychology for crime, and we study crime and we study how it works with sentencing. So you actually get a whole picture of a number of things for the different subjects. So they're fairly interchangeable unless there's a specific reason, I think, that you want to go to university and you're looking at specific courses. Then all these subjects really work very well together.
Brilliant. Can we move on to next question, please? Sylvia, here's one for you.
Well, what do we study for business? Basically, in the subject for business, in the first year, you're looking at how the business, small businesses, medium-sized business, they do work. So we study the functions, like, for example, the financial department. We're looking at the human resources department. We're looking at the marketing department. And also we're looking at the operations department, all really, really good in depth. And I must to say that, like Francis was mentioning earlier, it combines some of the content overlaps a bit with economics. So I got students this year and in the second year as well that they do tend to study economics and business, and sometimes some of the content, some of the theories and some of the content areas they kind of they done it before, or basically we're doing it, and then in economics they say, oh Sylvia, I have done this in economics, and they help each other out. But it's basically you get to know what the business is all about, how they do work. And in the first year you're looking at those 4 functions, and in the second year you're looking more on a strategic, more into the how they can pursue different strategic change within internationally, globally. But I mean, it's an amazing subject, and you will get to develop and critical analyze within the context, within the case scenarios. So that's what we study in business.
Oh, I always reminds me what you're saying there, Sylvia. I remember someone giving some career advice once, saying that if your goal in life is to become rich, you need to work in those industries in which money travels. So perhaps that would be something which could apply to business.
Yep.
There we go. Definitely one of those ones there. What is our A-level pass rate? So the A-level pass rate, really and bluntly as put it, is very, very close to 100%, and it has been for a number of years. But I know that the data that people will be really more interested in there is the nuance of that. So as we know, with 2020, we had the idea of centre assessment grades, and our students did very well, and we're very proud of them. But of course, there weren't exams. So I'd imagine the kind of data that you guys would be interested in there more generally is how do we do in those kinds of fields? So between 2017 and 19, putting them all together, and the thing is, our overall pass rate was very close to 100%, 99.5, that kind of region. But we also had 78% A to C. And indeed, and this is one of those stats which I think is very good, it's 49% high grades, which is what we mean by A star to B, which is a very, very strong performance, particularly given the nature of the community in North Devon and the disadvantages our learners face. We are incredibly proud of these results and what we do for our community. Cool. I mean, if anyone's got any more questions specifically about subjects, please fire them away and you get the answers and we can get that data to people. Marissa, can you do a science with, say, history and English, not really knowing what to do in the future? I think, can you? Yes, and people have done. That's one. In fact, I do have a student doing something similar, a couple of sciences. What I think is actually, though, the not knowing what to do in the future is kind of the important part of that question, which is that if you have a focus and a drive towards where you're trying to go, then you will do better because you've got that focus. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sit there and say, yes, I absolutely want to be this very specific type of data analyst for a company, or I want to be leader of the Labour Party, or I want to be, I don't know, something else. But it's maybe think about the kind of things you're good at. So, for example, if you're pondering doing a science with history and English, what are you strongest at as an individual? Are you stronger dealing with more discrete data and kind of rational processing and formulae and stuff? Or are you stronger when you're communicating in writing and coming up with ideas where there aren't the right answers? So yes, you can do this. And we would encourage in this scenario to have further chats with us about what you want to do. But I think it's more important to try and think where your skills fit and what you like doing as opposed to what you like studying, and then picking the subjects which kind of fit around that. Cool. Thank you.
Can I add something to that, John?
Oh, yes, please, Francis. Please do.
Yeah. I think going back to Marissa's question, I know that students come sometimes thinking that that's what they want to do. They want to do, say, history when they go to university, and they take a different subject, and suddenly, because it is slightly different to studying it at GCSE, they can find that they go on to their interests are suddenly taken off in that direction. And I think that's particularly right when you're studying a newer subject like law or psychology or sociology or even business. If you haven't done it at GCSE, you can be just grabbed hold of with enthusiasm for a particular subject and whizzed off down another direction because it is so different at A level. It's a different way of learning. So just, if you're not sure what you want to do, I would say keep very much an open mind as to where you might want to go.
I suppose actually just thinking about Francis prompted my mind on that question as well. You've also got this kind of effect that might occur that obviously different subjects do different things. So I refer to them history, politics, and English. A lot of that is very, very written based. Therefore, if you're doing 3 subjects, you're doing more essays, more of those skills, and doing well in each of them will also train you in the other ones. Splitting potentially between maybe sciences and those subjects, it means if you did like science, art, and essay, you're getting less training in each of those 3 discrete skills. That does not mean people haven't been successful doing it in the past when they've got reasons for it, but it's to think that the actual, it's like if you were doing a sport which is predicated on running fast, if all of your activities involved making you better at running fast, then you'll become better at that sport. That kind of idea. Brilliant. Next question, please. Do you recommend doing both geography and business? Well, I think you could. What do you reckon here, Sylvia? And I think Mary Ellen could probably have an answer in the chats as well.
I mean, both. I mean, my subject I know has a lot of content, and then you have to apply it to the case scenario. And I guess also geography have a lot of content, but we do have students that they do have business, maybe economics and geography. Is a lot of content.
Good idea.
Sorry, I don't know what Mary Ellen would say on this one.
Well, Mary Ellen's put in the chat. She says geography goes well with a wide range of subjects. I mean, the interaction of humans in the world, I would have thought. Said there wouldn't be much of an overlap, though you do have the idea of globalization in the first power and superpowers in second year. And I imagine globalization is an important part of that.
Yeah.
Cool. Can we move on to the next question, please? What kind of careers can I do with these kinds of subjects? Well, I think possibly we could round robin this one. I mean, myself as the history and politics teacher, I'm going to tell you to aspire to be president of the United States, which unfortunately, unless you were born American citizen, you can't. But I do genuinely believe that. So about the subjects that I teach, I've occasionally read the sorts of things. I remember being 16 and going into careers guidance, and there would be something really boring that say, with history, you can be a librarian. And I'm not knocking being a librarian. If you want to be, absolutely. But it kind of like wasn't the inspiring thing. And I said, well, you kind of got the idea that after the prime ministers of the world have generally studied things like history and politics and economics and law. So I would argue that it enables you to lead, it enables you to analyze, it enables you to do things that other people cannot do with their minds, to take complicated problems, to develop solutions. For example, how do you roll out coronavirus vaccines when half of the internet thinks they're good and half of them thinks they're bad, and persuading those ideas? Those are the skills you get from mine. But I mean, let's round robin. So Eve, what kind of careers could you do with psychology?
I think a lot of people associate psychology with therapy and clinical psychologists and educational psychologists and health psychologists. But basically, any career that you want to go into, you can use psychology because it's about the study of human behavior and the processes of the mind. So it's so broad that if you study psychology, it's just a good footstep into anything you do. It's a fantastic subject.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Francis, besides being a Supreme Court Justice, what else could law do for you?
Well, of course, a lot of our prime ministers have been legal bobs themselves. So I'd be treading on your toes there a bit, John, as well. But in the same way that Eve said that psychology is the study of human behaviour, then law is the study of the world that you work in. And you can go into anything after having studied law. Business, you could go into doing something in the police, anything like that at all. It doesn't preclude you from doing anything. and it gives you lots of great skills. I know you were talking before, John, about skills for analysis, and we teach you logic and methodology, and so I think a lot of the skills that you get from the different subjects are also great, but it doesn't preclude you. It opens the door more than anything else, whichever one you choose.
Absolutely, that's good, wasn't it? And Sylvia, could you tell us a little bit possibly about business? And
Yeah, I mean,
mentioned.
Yeah, I agree a lot with Frances. Really, like the same. My subject opens the doors to. I mean, I can see students this year, for example, applying to do. We got students applying for marketing, another student applying for management degree or accountancy. So it opens the door because it gets you skills like Frances was saying. You get to analyze data, you get to analyze strategies within the marketing department, you get to analyze strategies within finance. And why not? Why not open your own business as well? You get the opportunity to say, right, I think I got the right skills, I got the right set of, maybe backup financial and set up your own business, or going into marketing, finance, management, which is amazing. I mean, students, they get to, the good thing with A-levels is like in the first year, they get to find their own fit, but in the second year, they find the route they follow. So, I mean, it's a good choice. I think the social science subjects we offer at college.
Yeah, and I think summarising, aware of colleagues in the chat, obviously subjects like geography and economics and sociology, they do by definition lead to careers associated with those disciplines. But I think the takeaway from this, as Eve said and Frances did, is it's not necessarily, I don't want to be a historian or a history teacher, so I shouldn't study history, or I don't want to do psychology, so I shouldn't study psychology. It's actually thinking that the kinds of professional careers as well as the vocational ones that come out of A-level study, usually after university in some way or another, not always, but usually, it's not necessarily about the individual subjects that you took. It's about how they help shape your perspective of the world as a person and how they turn you into the incredibly smart person that will hopefully improve the world for the people of the future. I think that'd be a good one to that. Cool. Next question, please. What are the entry requirements to study A-levels? So they vary and they come round to round, but our broad entry requirement is 5 subjects at grade 4, including English language and maths. Now, obviously, everything at the moment is has to be careful when we say about entry requirements, and we're paying very close attention to what the government is saying about how we should treat GCSE results as a consequence of coronavirus. But that's the broad idea, though some subjects have additional requirements to them. I know what I want to do with A-levels, but I don't know which ones to pick. Should I hold off of applying until I know? I would say no, because we can help you pick. So the point is that if you're uncertain, apply, pick some A-levels, put it in, and then we will be able to be in touch to have a chat to you, talk about your choices, and hopefully get you a selection that you like. I don't know if anyone else on the panel has anything further to add to that.
Yeah,
I just think that if you do choose your A-levels, you don't have to stick to what you've chosen. We're very fluid and we try as much as possible to make sure that each student is with their right course, and we're very supportive of that. And also, if a student does start within a couple of weeks and decide they want to change, again, we put everything in place to amend their timetable, get them into the new subject and help them catch up. So no, you should definitely apply and just go with the course.
Cool. That's just thinking. I'm just saying to the people who are looking at the questions. Oh, that was exactly the one I was going to pick up, Ria. Thank you. So Ria, Frances, but I think you might like to have a go at this one.
Okay. So A-level law is not a requirement to go on to do law at A-level. However, I know a lot of my students find the first month or so really hard because there's an awful lot of vocabulary, a lot of new skills to learn. And actually, I think it's really beneficial for you to know that before you go on to do it at university. I do keep in contact with some of my old students, and I recently spoke to one of my students from a couple of years ago, and she's gone on fundamentals. So I would advise anybody, if you're going to do law, if you want to do law at university, do it at A-level. You will get benefit out of it.
I suppose, yep. Very good answer there. Thank you, Frances. Could we have the next question, please? Can I change my mind on the A-level subjects that I've chosen once I start the course? I believe Eve touched on this earlier. The answer is yes, with caveats, which is that it is absolutely right that you guys are on the right course, but the earlier that you tell us that you're not, the better, because you kind of get this idea that as you start to move into an academic year, you know, a week or two in, fair enough, everyone is finding their feet, they're discovering, particularly with new subjects that they haven't necessarily studied before. If you start to get to 8 weeks into the term or 7 weeks and saying, I'd like to switch subject, then you've missed a huge amount of content connected to the subject you want to switch to. So therefore, it kind of becomes a little bit later. So yes, there is the opportunity to change your A-levels, but I think it's very important that we try and make those positive choices about why you're doing what you're doing, and you chat to us earlier the better. From interview onwards, from the point where you first made contact, let's talk about your choices and get them right. Makes life easier for all of us, I think. How are A-levels assessed? Generally by examination. They are linear courses, which means that unlike in previous years, or people such as myself, when I did mine, there used to be a modular system where they'd be AS and A2. Now it's just exams at the end of 2 years. I believe the majority of subjects are 3 exams. Some are 2 exams with some element of coursework. But for example, my understanding is that history coursework, for example, is 20%. Possibly Mary Ellen might be able to clarify about geography. So it's still primarily exam-based. Eve, was there anything specific about how psychology is assessed that would differ from that?
No, we've got the big exams at the end, but equally we do continual assessment through both academic years, so that by the time we get to the exam, students are well versed in timings, content and exam knowledge, which I think is really important to add, because it is that huge exam, but everyone's very, very fully prepared for it at the end of the 2 years.
Absolutely. Preparation and practice. We make no apologies for the fact that we will assess you and we will push you on your assessments. It's not for us, but it's for you, in order to make sure that you guys are prepared to do those exams. Francis, anything specific about how law is assessed?
We're totally assessed at the end of the year with 3 papers. The 3 papers are identical in format to each other. So throughout the 2 years, we prepare by doing questions in that vein, the same way as psychology does. It is constantly looking at what the exam is going to do. So you're not going to just do lots of content and then turn up on the day of the exam and think, oh, there's an interesting question. We will have prepared you for sitting those questions, all exam. Yeah.
Cool. And Sylvia, business exam?
It's exactly the same, like Francis said. For business, we do have 3 exam papers. Each of them is 2-hour paper, and they equally weigh the same. It's 33%, 33.3 each of them. And also throughout the course, I normally tend to assess the students that do tests at the end of each section, and also I prepare them with a past paper questions, so they are ready and they're not going to be scared when it comes to the final exam at the end of the second year. So we do, it's part of the, A-levels, we have to do assessments throughout the year to check that they keep on, because it's a lot of content otherwise if you leave it for the last year.
Okay. And Mary Ellen's also popped in the chat about geography. Geography has 3 papers, each at 2.25 hours plus coursework, which is 20%. So I think just trying to sum up the areas. Thank you everyone for dropping in for the questions. It's been a new experience for all of us. And I would overall and sum up and say about social sciences, if you want to change the world, if you want to lead the world, if you want to understand the way the world works, or if you just like knowing stuff, whichever way around it is, these are the subjects that will train your skills in analysis and evaluation to be able to make the world a better place, or maybe a worse place, but I'd hope that's not your goal and focus. But we're here to support you, whatever. So please hit the links below if you want more contacts or stuff from us. And from the moment you apply, please do not be afraid of asking questions. We are here to help. So I've been John. I teach history and politics. Thank you to Francis. I believe Eve's nipped off, and Sylvia and everybody. And thank you to everyone in the chats. Thank
you very much.
We are ready to go. And thank you very much.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.